The Carolina Hurricanes took a 2-1 series lead after their 4-0 shutout win on Saturday night. With Game 4 on the horizon on Monday night, what can we see in Game 3 that might translate to a possible win and a stranglehold in Game 4?
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin, the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers, also the co-host of the Surgecast, which is a weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all of my duties here at Locked On Hurricane. Got a marvelous Monday edition of the pod as we get to kind of take a look back at Game 3 and why that should be linked up to Game 4 and what we can see from that game, which could translate into Monday night's game against the Washington Capitals, why Frederik Andersen has been absolutely unreal for the Canes and why that might continue, why also the Canes' depth has been very clutch for the Hurricanes this playoff so far in this run, and why Andrei Svechnikov is someone who has been just an absolute light show for the Hurricanes, someone that has really stepped up in a big way. And we're going to talk about why that is going to matter so much to the Hurricanes, not just for this season, but potentially for the rest of the playoffs. But before we jump into all that, this episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONAHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Let's start off with the Great Dane after a great game on Saturday night, getting the 21 save performance en route to the 4-0 shutout win. And just a magnificent game from him. You can definitely tell why he's been a big piece for the Hurricanes so far and probably the most consistent player on the roster. Like I said, 21 saves, absolutely unreal run that he's on right now. After 7 starts for the Carolina Hurricanes in their 8 games since he did miss Game 5 back in round 1, how about a 132 goals against average and a 940 save percentage? These are the most absurd numbers I have seen in a very long time for a goaltender being this good in the playoffs in just 8 games. And here's the crazy part too is Andersen's goals against average is his career best if you're looking just under 10 starts in a playoff. The last time he had anywhere near this was back during the 2015-16 season with the Anaheim Ducks, where he was just on an absolute tear. And that was just him playing in 5 games for them that playoff series. And it was only, like I said, it was only 5 of them where he finished 3-2 with a 141 goals against and a 947 save percentage. Yes, his 132, absolute best. His 940 save percentage, he's only 0.007 off from his best with the Ducks. Yes, I know he's played 2 more games, but for the fact that he's so close to those numbers is absolutely mind-boggling. And 2, that shutout was his first playoff shutout for the Hurricanes in 3 postseasons. The last time the Hurricanes had a shutout in the postseason was from Antti Raanta back in 22-23. Back in the 22 playoffs when Andersen was out. So that is a very long stretch of not having a playoff shutout, but the fact that Andersen did it in this scale in Game 3 against the Washington Capitals, who basically had the most points in the Eastern Conference, and it was his first one with the Canes. But just looking at the numbers of how his goals against is his career best is absolutely insane. And that's why the way he's been playing so far these playoffs, he's given up 3 goals back against the Devils, and that was in a double overtime loss in Game 3. And he gave up 2 goals in the 3-1 loss in Game 2 against the Capitals. So if you really look at it, every other game that Andersen's been playing in, he's only given up a goal or less. So that is really telling of how good he's been outside of 2 games where he's given up 2 and 3, and that's it. That's why if you look at how he's been playing, the defense is playing great in front of him. The team's been playing great. He's kept this team in a lot of games because you saw it so far this series against the Capitals. Game 3 was the first time they had a lead the entire time in round 2. First game, they won in overtime. Game 2, they lost 3-1. Game 3 was their first lead, and they did not lose it at all. Like I said, you go with the 4-0 shutout. And that's why when you look at this upcoming game on Monday night, that's why with the way Anderson's playing, I don't see that changing. For the fact of just how good he's been. And of course, it's just a total team play, too, because the big question is, what are the Hurricanes doing to shut down Alexander Ovechkin? Well, pretty simple. Complete team defense. They are not taking a lot of penalties. They are limiting the Capitals' opportunities. They're not giving them 4 or 5 power plays a game. Most of the penalties have been a lot of offsetting. So it's a lot of 4-on-4. And even then, they're making Alexander Ovechkin work a lot harder to get his shots off. But the thing, too, is it's Frederik Andersen in the net. Just that cool, calm, collected demeanor that the Great Dane is. That's why he's been so good. And that's why the team in front of him, yeah, they make mistakes, but they know they get a guy back there who's going to do really well. And the thing, too, is it's not like Freddie has seen a lot of shots in this series. How about for the fact that he had 14 in game 1, 20 in game 2, and then 21 in game 3. That's it. He has seen a total of 55 shots in this series, and he's given up 3 goals. That's the crazy part. And the thing, too, is he has a .929 save percentage in game 1, 900 in game 2, and a 1,000 in game 3. Outside of him leaving early in game 4, where he only faced 7 shots and gave up a goal for an .857, every other game has been above 900. That's how dialed in Freddie Andersen has been for the Hurricanes, and that's why I believe it's still going to continue on, because if it's 1 or 2 games, okay, goalie stole 1, he's been playing really well, but how can he sustain it? Like I said, 7 starts into a playoff run, and his goals against average is his career best at almost a 1.3. He's at a 132 goals against. That's just a goalie having a good couple of games. This is a guy who's absolutely dialed in to an extreme where that's a Conn Smythe playoff run. Yes, I know we have the rest of round 2 to go through. Got the conference finals. We got a Stanley Cup. But if the Hurricanes continue this playoff run and the way Anderson's been playing, there is no doubt in my mind you are going to see a second Hurricanes netminder, if this goes the distance, having a Conn Smythe to his name. The last guy to do it, of course, Cam Ward in 2006. If the Hurricanes go and win the whole thing, Freddie Andersen, without a doubt, would have to be the Conn Smythe. The only other guy that we're going to talk about later in the show could be Andrei Svechnikov with how good he's been playing. But Frederik Andersen has been that dialed in for the Canes. And that's why I think if there is someone to help the team just win the series, because I predicted 7. It's still very much doable that it could happen in 7. But if the Hurricanes get it done quicker, if we're talking 5 games, maybe 6 at the most, if you're back at Lenovo Center next Saturday, the way Anderson's been playing, that's one of the reasons why. Because if him just absolutely being dialed in to keep this team in the game, because the last 3 games, no one has scored in the first period. Capitals scored first in game 1 and in game 2, both in the second period. Game 3 was the first time the Hurricanes scored first and had a lead. And the fact when they did it, it was a shutout. He has kept the Hurricanes in every single game in this series, and even in the series against the Devils, too. And that's outside of a double overtime loss. The fact that he took the Devils to the distance in game 3 showed that it was not going to be easy against him. And that we're seeing it right now with the Capitals, who were the number 1 seed in the entire East. And now you've held them. He's given up 3 goals in 3 games. That's just how good Anderson has been. So that's why I think in game 4, it's going to be, I don't think we're going to see another shutout, but this is where he's going to give up maybe 2 goals or less, because that's just how good he's been playing. Knock on wood that it happens, because playoffs are different. Something can happen. But for me, the way Freddie's been playing, it gives you a lot of hope and it almost makes you feel, okay, if he's in net, we know we're going to be in good shape because he's in there, and that's why he's exactly it's exactly the reason why he got that contract extension with the Carolina Hurricanes to stay through the 25-26 season. So if there's one big key to where I see a link of Game 3 playing a big factor in Game 4, Frederik Andersen is that number one thing. Now, outside of Frederik Andersen, of course, like I said, it was a complete team win on Saturday night, and that is the Hurricanes' depth. So stick around. We'll talk about more why that depth very much matters for the Hurricanes and why it's going to help in Game 4 and the rest of the playoffs. So stick around, and we'll talk about it here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can check all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKDOWNAHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKDOWNAHL for half off your first year. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, at the end of segment 1, Frederik Andersen absolutely lights out for the Hurricanes. But the other thing that's been really helping out this team has been their depth, and why I think it's going to matter in Game 4, the rest of this series, and if they continue this playoff run, why it's going to matter even more so there as well. You look at the Hurricanes team as overall, of course you're going to have the big guys on top of the score sheet. Sebastian Aho's got 9 points. Andrei Svechnikov and Seth Jarvis both have 7 points. Shane Gostisbehere with 6. Logan Staycoven and Jackson Blake with 5. Here's the thing, though, too. Out of the 19 guys that have skated for the Hurricanes, 16 of them have a point. And that's even with Mark Jankowski only playing in 3 games and Ross Lick playing in 5. The only 3 guys who've not got on the score sheet, Jordan Staal, William Carey, and Sean Walker. Here's the thing, however, with that. What is the thing that Rod Brind'Amour has always preached about is the fact that as long as you're doing your job, that's just as important for the team winning as even if you are on the score sheet, as long as you're doing the proper things off the score sheet that's helping the team out. And this is what Rod Brind'Amour said after Game 3 about Sean Walker when I was there and asked him in the post-game press conference. I'm glad you mentioned walks, talking about Sean Walker. I think he's been under the radar really all year. Whatever we ask him to do, he kind of fills in or takes the charge every night. He took the lead back there. That tells you of how much important Sean Walker has been. The fact that, yeah, he's a -1, hasn't put up any points in the games in the playoffs, but he's still found a way to be contributing in that possibility, because great stick work in Game 3, was able to put himself into a good spot where he broke up a lot of passes, kept a lot of guys off from having great, high danger chances, keeping the slot away from certain guys, and just doing the stick work that was needed, and even blocking shots that were very clutch that you needed at those moments. So that's why he's been so effective. William Carey throwing bodies. He's won a couple of the Vegas Golden Knights. He's been there and done that. He knows how to be a playoff guy. That's why the Hurricanes signed him to a 6-year, $2 million per season contract. And Jordan Staal, it's Jordan Staal. We all know how good he is. He's a great defensive center. He's someone who should be up for the Selke a lot, and the guy who's been a very tough customer in the faceoff dot. And that's not his job. His job is not to score. It's to be a defensive shutdown center against the other team's best players. But for the fact that you have 16 forwards out of a total of 19 that have gotten at least a point, goes to show that the depth of the Hurricanes is very huge. And I even asked Rod about the team on their defense in terms of the depth, along with the defense and everything else is going on. And for him, it's just the fact that, paraphrasing, it's that the whole team is healthy. That's what's been beneficial for the Hurricanes, is that they have found a way to have the most health, basically the healthiest team of a playoff roster in the 7 seasons that Rod Brind'Amour has been head coach. Last season, you lose Brett Pesce, in round one against the Islanders. You lose Jesper Foss in the last game of the regular season. He hasn't played since. Seth Jarvis was hurt. You go back to two playoffs ago, you lose Andrei Svechnikov a week after the trade deadline. That's a big guy to lose. So, yeah, you look at the last series of the Hurricanes played against the Devils. The Devils were a decimated roster with a lot of their key guys out. So for the fact that the Hurricanes are playing with house money in terms of their depth is very good and very telling of why they are finding a way to do what they can in this playoff series, just in the playoffs in general. Depth is a big key. And like I said, the Hurricanes are the most top to bottom, the most loaded team of just straight up depth. And it's a strategy that's going to help benefit them because maybe if they need a guy who needs to throw a little more physicality and use a body who can be a shutdown center, there's Mark Jankowski. If you need a guy who usually plays on wing, but it can all give you an option as a center, as a right-hand shot, that's Jack Roslovic, and he scored his first playoff goal with the Hurricanes in Game 3. Same thing with Eric Robinson. That goes into the depth of those guys because it's the buy-in. And that's what Robinson and Roslovic both said when I asked them about what helps this team out with their depth. And they said it's just that. It's the buy-in from all the guys. They saw it in training camp since day one, and they buy in themselves as well. Jack Roslovic tied his, he tied his career high in goals with 22. That he said back in 21-22 with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Eric Robinson, career year across the board, 14 goals, 18 assists, 32 points. Those are all career highs. And those guys are on one-year deals, learning a whole new system they've never played in before, and they had career years, and they're still contributing to the Hurricanes, and that's why they scored 2 of the 4 goals in Game 3. So for me, when you look at what is a big thing for Game 4, it's the Canes' depth. You can clearly see it because the way they just skated the absolute crap out of the Capitals in Game 3 shows that the Capitals are a team that if you shut them down well enough where you limit their power play opportunities and you're taking 2 penalties or less, and that's even with the fact that you are limiting most of them to 4v4 opportunities, you're not giving Alexander Ovechkin any chance that he'll do what he does. And the fact that you are absolutely using your speed to the advantage, and you're playing 60 minutes of Hurricanes hockey, that's going to go a long way because the Capitals are not going to be able to skate with you. And that's why you saw a lot of the third period where they're trying to press, and there was always one guy back, and there was a lot of odd man rushes. And Spencer Carberry brought that up in the post-game press conference too for the Capitals. He's like the fact that they were trying to play from behind, and there was a lot of more, things that you don't really see from the Capitals because they are going through some adversity right now, dealing with a Hurricanes team that was putting it to them in Game 3, and that's why you saw a lot of the odd man rushes. So I think the fact that the Hurricanes are so built on speed and structure the defense and smothering teams, not just in the offensive zone, but the neutral zone of the it's a 200-foot smothering that the Hurricanes put these teams under, and that's why they just grind and grind and grind teams down. And that's why I think that the Hurricanes, well, yes, they did win the Eastern Conference in terms of the regular season. When you see a team that's built for playoffs, built for a system, it's not just a top line and some other guys, or it's a top 6 and some other guys, or it's a top D pair and some other guys. The Hurricanes are a 4 lines of rolling through every single game because they're all bought into the system. All 3 defensive pairings bought into the system. The Hurricanes are built as a system team. They are not built on a certain number of guys. It's not 1 or 2 or a few. It's top to bottom, all 20 guys are bought in from the run, and that's why the Canes' depth is so key for them. So that's why I think when you look at Game 4, if the Hurricanes take what they did in Game 3, great structured defense, great team play, great transition, great forecheck, and great net minding, and you translate that to a Game 4 where you go out there and just do your job like you did in Game 3, that's why I believe Game 4 could be a Hurricanes win, and that's why they will have a 3-1 game stranglehold in this series. Because if the Hurricanes can replicate what they did in Game 4 and in Game 3, that is going to put so much pressure on the Capitals. Now you have to go back to Washington for Game 5 on Thursday night, praying your season's still available for you to go on and take care of it. Because if you're down 3-1 in a series, that is so much pressure to not get eliminated in front of your fans. So Game 4 is going to be very, very big because if the Hurricanes manage to not split this one at home and take a 3-1 series lead. All the pressure's on Washington in Game 5. And even then, if the Capitals find a way to tie game, if they win Game 4 and the Hurricanes go win Game 5 in Washington, that even puts more pressure on the Capitals if it goes to Game 6 back in Raleigh on Saturday. But right now, for me, the depth of the Hurricanes is really showing of why this team has a legitimate shot of taking a stranglehold after Game 4 on Monday night. Now, another guy we have to talk about. I know we talk about Frederik Andersen individually. We talk about the Kings' depth as a whole team. But there's one guy we have to mention who's had a phenomenal playoff run so far for the Hurricanes, and that's Andrei Svechnikov. Stick around, and we'll talk more about the power forward Russian here in a second on a Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Now, we have to talk about Andrei Svechnikov, and my goodness, what a playoff run he is having right now. Tied for second in the team on points with Seth Jarvis with 7. He's a +3, has a power play goal, and has 2 game-winning goals in these playoffs so far. Oh, and he also leads the team in goals with 6. The next guy, how about Sebastian Aho and Logan Staykoven with 3? Yes, Andrei Svechnikov is doubled 2 of his next teammates. 2 teammates combined has what he has. And per Keen StatBrand, absolutely love those guys. They do a great job with their stats. Andrei Svechnikov is the only player in franchise history for the Hurricanes to have 6 goals in the first 8 playoff games in its entirety. That's how good Andrei Svechnikov is. The fact that he's got the Hurricanes' first 2 postseason hat tricks, on top of having the first ever 6 playoff goals in the first 8 games, it goes to show how much of an unreal run he's been on. And I asked Rod Burnmore, like, you saw he had an up and down regular season. You were trying to get him going to hit that next level. And the fact that he's done that now. And Rod, Burnmore, paraphrasing, said basically, yeah, it's the system. It's the system that's hard to play in, but it's just got to keep working on it and keep getting better. And that's what makes you successful, is keep working on it. And you're seeing that, yeah, maybe it was an up and down regular season for Svech, but he's found a way to hit that next gear. And, and a lot of analysts have talked about it. That's what the Hurricanes guys have said too. If you want to take us to the next level, Andrei Svechnikov needs to hit that. He needs to be that guy to take you there. That's why the Hurricanes drafted him so in the top 3 of his draft class, because of how dynamic he is as a power forward who can score goals and use his body. He's been sensational these playoffs, throwing the perfect hits. Only has taken 1 penalty. Even then, the penalty was kind of weird. It's like he got a roughing in Game 3. It wasn't a rough. It is what it is. But the fact that he has limited the penalties, he's not taking a lot of penalties in these playoffs. He's scoring goals in all different ways. He's got 2 empty netters, but he's got 4 legitimate goals that are really well. I mean, he scored the first goal in Game 3 to give the Hurricanes their first lead of the series, and it was off a faceoff. The thing is, the Capitals won the faceoff, but he got to the puck first and just shot it on Thompson, and it got in. Like, that's how good he's been for the Hurricanes. Anything that he's basically putting on net right now, it's going in. That's why he has 6 goals in the first 8 games of the playoffs. And I think with the fact that you take that from Game 3 and you translate that to Game 4 on Monday night, that's going to be another big factor for the Hurricanes. Even if he doesn't score, if Andrei Svechnikov is hitting in the right way where he's not getting penalized, boxing guys out, playing great defense like he can, play 200-foot hockey of what the Hurricanes want out of their forwards. And if it translates the goals, then hey, that's fantastic. But the way that he's been just absolutely dialed in, and the guys that are seeing around him too. And they asked Eric Robinson the last time, what are you seeing from Svechnikov? The fact that he's on a great run right now, and just the fact that he's a power forward who can play like that shows why he's one of those guys that's up there. Who I think, if you look at, like the Mikko Rantanens and all these other guys, I think someone who's very underrated as a power forward, it's Andrei Svechnikov, and it's not just based on recency bias. So you can see, even before his injury, he was very dynamic. I think it's just he's kind of had to find his confidence again after his ACL tear a couple seasons ago. So I think where you're finally seeing that confident Andrei Svechnikov that we've seen before, where he can just go and be that dynamic guy, go and control games. I think that, yeah, maybe the regular season took him a little bit to get there, but now you're really seeing it here in the playoffs where the confidence is at an all-time high. He's playing some great hockey, boxing out at the right time, throwing the right hits, not getting into, barking matches and scrums. He's not finding ways to get himself in the box. He's being able to play his game, but play in a way where your best ability is your availability, and his availability has been phenomenal for the Canes. Like I said, his only penalty was a 4-on-4, was a matching minor for roughing, and that's it. And that's the whole playoffs. 1 penalty in 8 playoff games. That's why he's been so dynamic for the Canes, is the fact that he's keeping himself available to be on the ice for 5-on-5, 4 power plays. Heck, he scored a hat trick in Game 4 against the Devils to help the Hurricanes put themselves in a position to have a 3-1 stranglehold in that series. So if we're looking at a Game 4, do we see another hat trick in Game 4 against the Capitals? I don't know. Maybe. That would be great to see. But even if he gets an impact of maybe a couple assists or maybe a goal and assist or any type of a multi-point game, that'd be very huge for the Hurricanes. So I think if you look at another key of like how good Andersen has been, how good the depth as a whole team has been, I think Andrei Svechnikov could be that guy who's adding another layer to this team that's going to help give them another key aspect of going out and winning Game 4. So that's why for this episode, that's why you're seeing a lot of links of we're kind of, reviewing Game 3, but also previewing Game 4 of like linking the two sides of like what we saw in Game 3 is easily doable, is easily translatable to what could happen in Game 4. As long as you take all the components of what you did in Game 3, translate it to Game 4, yes, every game is different, but if you can kind of do what you did in a certain aspect or within that realm, I don't see why you could not do it again or in some capacity get back to around that area. That's why for me, I'm got the utmost confidence in the Hurricanes to take that Game 3 play, translate it to Game 4, and as long as you keep limiting your penalties where you're not giving the Capitals 4 or 5 power play opportunities and giving Ovechkin more opportunities and taking advantage of your own power plays. Like I said, you're at 33.3%. You are right now the number 1 ranked power play unit out of all the teams that are left. Technically, the Kings and the Canadians are ahead of them, but they're both eliminated. So all of the out of the 8 teams that are left, Hurricanes are the number 1 power play unit. Edmonton's at 30% at second. Hurricanes, 95.5% on the pill and kill, 21 for 22. Best out of all the remaining teams and best overall in general, even with the teams that are eliminated. And the next best is the Stars at 87.1 as of this recording. I know there's games going on Sunday, but you translate your special teams of how good they've been playing, the great net minding of Frederik Andersen, the great depth that the Hurricanes have of just scoring up and down this roster, and the fact that, Aho leads the team in points. Yes, Jarvis has 7. But if Andrei Svechnikov can be that guy that the Hurricanes have been asking all season to have, he will help them take them to the next level because you need guys like him that are that strong power forward, using the big body and finding a way to score goals. The fact that he scored 6 goals already shows that's why I said Frederik Andersen could be a guy who could most likely win the Conn Smythe if the Hurricanes go the distance. If there's one other person I think who could legitimately say that they could have a say or a case for the Conn Smythe, it's Andrei Svechnikov. And I think do not underestimate this guy for a phenomenal, impactful Game 4 for the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'm feeling very confident that we could see a win on Monday night for the Hurricanes to take a 3-1 stranglehold on this second round series against the Washington Capitals. But it should be a lot of fun on Monday night, and hopefully we get to see that happen from the Canes. But guys, this will be a Monday edition of Locked On. Thank you for making your first listen. Your second listen, check out Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until a Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, I'm a one true Zach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I'm also on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin where you can check out all the links to where you can look at my articles on the hockeyrares.com. Also, if you want to check out my other podcasts, well, it's the Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube for Locked On Hurricanes. Follow, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review because I might just read them on the show. And you can check that out on Google, Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to your podcast. For YouTube, well, it's Locked On Hurricanes. Subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumbs up to let me know if you like the show as well. Share with other Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But hope everyone enjoyed the Monday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Enjoy your Monday and have fun watching your Carolina Hurricanes take on the Washington Capitals in Game 4 on Monday night. And until next time, as always, let's go Canes.